Welcome back to another fun edition of the Baseline Scoop. I've got my guys Justin and Zach here with me with another exciting week of being a Sixers fan. Boy, it is nothing like a off season that's really an on season. It constantly is filled with storylines, we'll say. So the storyline we poked at last week, we thought we were coming into is the Quentin Grimes signing, and that's what we thought we were going to take up this whole segment and talking about. But guess what? Just in true Sixers fashion, they said, "Hold my cup." You thought we were going to talk about extensions when we could talk about the thing that the Sixers do best, and we know that's not winning as much as it is injuries. So, guys, no one who's on here right now, who's probably everyone who's joining the chat right now is not going to be surprised, but our new up and coming superstar, VJ, unfortunately did not make the debut that we were thinking. Well, let me correct that. He did make the debut that we thought, but did not have the follow up that we thought we were going to have, unfortunately, due to a, we'll call a little boo boo on his finger. Zach, Justin, Sixers fan aside, any in-house doctors? How are we feeling right now?
Yeah, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Baseline Scoop. It feels like this team's cursed, man. To be flat honest with you, we'll talk a bit more about that a little later on. But like every second, like the immediate second that this team, that these fans get something worth celebrating, worth watching, worth enjoying, boom, gone. I mean, it's straight out of South Park, everything's great with VJ Edgecombe and he's gone, like it's just words can't even say like it just what the feeling behind it is. I mean, thankfully this case doesn't sound as serious. According to the team, he's got a left thumb sprain. This is just the summer league. Why risk anything worse happening? I get that. I'm disappointed that we're not going to be watching Edgecombe Harper tonight. I think that was going to be the highlight. I think for everybody in Vegas tonight was watching the second and third picks face off. But so no VJ Edgecombe tonight. Sixers fans, there's obviously still a reason to watch. This summer league team. We'll talk more about that later. But I mean, to clear up the actual latest on him. So it's sprained left thumb for those who don't know. He is out for tonight's game in Vegas. He is still working out. It's not like he's not working out, anything like that. He is. So he is going to be reevaluated on Saturday, and he does have the potential to play later on in the Vegas Summer League. It's just that for now, no VJ Edgecombe. So, we'll see come Saturday what news breaks. Hopefully some good news for Philadelphia. But for right now, man, I mean, it's frustrating. It's another injury on top of the pile for Philadelphia.
Yeah, man. It's like literally, I think this was announced. I don't know. Maybe I was, not on my phone, and I just get a text from a friend, and it was like in true Sixers fashion. I'm like, here we go. It's like a badge of honor. Like in order for you to be a Sixer, you have to get injured. Like you just have to, big or small, it doesn't matter. But in this point, hopefully, it's just small. I mean, it seems small, and I hope they're just probably being precautious and probably, um, I don't know. They've seen enough, Zach. And Jordan. We talked about his debut, where he just looked really good, really confident. Albeit it's obviously the Utah summer league, but he looked confident. So maybe they're just like, oh, we're gonna just protect them, be cautious. You don't want to end up with a situation like a Paul George finger situation that hurt him for the remainder of the season. So it's like it's weird, but you kind of are happy that not happy, but relieved that it happened now and not later, right? So because McCain last year wasn't injured at all, he started out rough in summer league, but came on and then wound up got injured during the season. Hopefully they can get the rookie injury out the way now. So hopefully he still plays. Hopefully we get a chance to see him in the summer league. But if not, we've probably seen some good stuff stuff from him on the court, like in game. But as Zach said, he's working out, so that's always a good thing. So hopefully we do get a chance to see him. But I don't know, Zach. It might be some, I don't know, some curse or whatever it is. The sins of
Oh,
somebody has fallen down the line since
I
what?
mean, it's tough, honestly, not to point it back to Sam Hinkie. I mean, that's like where I think everyone would like, angered the basketball gods and whatever, and for some reason, Sam Presti gets a free pass. I still don't
right.
understand that. But it's crazy to see just another year, another injury. Obviously, Jared McCain was like right in the height of the favorite to win Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the
He's
year.
doing things that we only see from Steph Curry, like just an absolute like these already known as the saving grace of the season. He was, and then he's out for the rest of the season with a torn meniscus. And then this year now we have VJ Edgecombe missing summer league with the thumb, and this is coming off of his one game in summer league, which we haven't had a chance to talk about. I don't think on the pod. He looked fantastic. I mean, like we can talk about that for a quick second. Like he looked incredible. Like there were certainly shortcomings. Like the dribbling, will improve in time. They did the right thing and they kind of put him in that ball dominant role early on because now's the time, right? He's not going to have those same ball dominant opportunities at the NBA level playing alongside Maxey and McCain, even Grimes when he eventually comes, resigns back with the team. And then Paul George and Joel Embiid, obviously, like he's not going to have those same opportunities to play that ball dominant role. So get him in the gym now. Start working him on the point guard, like he said. He was going to be practicing as, be training as, and give him these opportunities to develop as a ball handler. I think it was the right thing they did with him from the start, and I think all things considered, he looked great. I mean, as an athlete, he looked incredibly fluid. The intensity was there two ways. He was talking trash to the other team, talking about I'm the number 3 pick. I'm not worried. Like I think there was nothing not to love about what we saw from VJ in his first bit of summer league action. And it's important, like summer league action is not about the counting stats, right? And his scoring was very impressive. We love how much he scored. You can't take whether they score like 30-ish points or not as the ultimate, like, did they have a good summer league or not? Jared McCain struggled in terms of actually getting the ball to the bottom of the net last year. That didn't mean anything, come the actual start of the year. What did we see from Jared McCain that did carry over? Well, we saw him being able to run an offense a lot more functionally than we expected. Because again, kind of like VJ at Baylor, Jared McCain at Duke, he didn't really run that offense. I mean, they were playing a center-centric offense around Kyle Filipowski, and he played a lot of off-ball. So you saw a lot more on-ball ability from Jared McCain. You saw that actually translate. You saw the IQ, and those were the things that you could then see carry over to the regular season for Jared McCain. So VJ Edgecombe, similar case. What did you see? You saw the athleticism. You saw the IQ in a lot of cases. Now, there's some things that he did that I don't think are necessarily going to translate against, full-time starter level NBA talent, in terms of a lot of those fakes when you get into kind of the middle of the paint. I thought all in all, he displayed one hell of an IQ, and I was encouraged by, his general feel for the game. So, you look at those intangibles, which is what you're watching for in this kind of situation. I thought he was great, so it's again, unfortunate not to see him play, but I'm happy, at least going forward, knowing a little bit more of what the Sixers have in VJ Edgecombe. What about you guys?
Yeah, no, I definitely will agree with that. And Justin, it's funny as you were talking about getting this injury out the way so that hopefully he has a prolonged career. It's kind of like the first date rule, right? You get the first one out the way and hope you got a better performance during the second one. So hopefully the same thing goes for VJ. And we knock this out now, and we don't have to worry about him for the rest of his career. That's hoping, but I would definitely agree with you, Zach. His performance, I was so captivated by his performance. I was watching Summer League off of my phone, and you would have thought people were literally crowded around me because they were wondering what was I looking so hard at, and I was just amazed at how well he was performing. And there was definitely no shortcomings in regards to the hype that was lived up to as far as the athleticism and how that can translate throughout his game. We talked about the dribbling. We can beat a dead horse with that, but I think we all agree that the athleticism and combating with the dribble, he'll fix his speed. It's just like a Ferrari trying to figure out how to handle those curves. You might have to take it down to 70, but still be as effective. So I also would agree that it was above what I was actually expecting, and I love the performance. Justin, I think it was pretty good though.
Yeah, and it's just interesting that they are. Well, the plan was for a point guard VJ, so I think it'll basically the space. I think everybody is hoping that the spacing in the NBA allows him to just have better downhill attacking ability and like kind of like wide open. And we also know that Maxi is better. Probably he's good on and off the ball, but his shooting ability, his range, like he's literally turned into like a comfortable 28 to 32-foot 3-point shooter. That just having those type of players on the court, McCain and stuff like that, like it'll allow so much space for him. So they're giving him a chance to, hold the ball and run the ball, run plays with the ball, run pick and roll. And then also experience on second side. When the first side of the action doesn't work, all right, cool. 10 seconds on the clock, 12 seconds on the clock. The first side action doesn't work. Get it to him on the weak side. See what he can do, especially against a defender that may not be one of the best perimeter defenders on the opponent's team. So it's interesting. I'm just hoping that we get a chance to see him again, and hopefully the injury is not super serious. It doesn't seem like it, but you just never know. Zaire Smith ate sesame chicken and almost died, so you can only just hope that next thing you know, he doesn't have a random blood clot in his thumb, and then leads to getting his thumb amputated or something crazy.
Mark Fultz, obviously had the motorcycle accident and forgot how to shoot, and there's it's one thing if not another. There was that run of how many foot bones, how many the navicular bones did Sixers players break in a row, where it was that crazy run that they had for a while there.
It was. I mean, but we're gonna. Obviously, we want VJ out on the field. I mean, out on the court. Obviously, what he showed us in a small sample size was amazing. We want to see more from it. But as you guys alluded to, that doesn't mean the summer league stops. Summer league definitely does continue. Now, obviously, VJ was a name that most people were looking for and watching for. But VJ aside, guys, what are we looking forward to as far as summer league? Some of the players you're watching and what you're looking to moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's still a lot of it focuses on Janai Broom, first of all. Want to continue to see. I feel like he's been such a polarizing player in summer league. There's some people, who watch him and they go, "How is Janai Broom available at 35? Like that's crazy." And then there's other people who watch him and say, "Why did the Sixers take Janai Broom at 35? That's crazy." Like there's just such a different viewing experience, and I think it's depending on kind of what you're hung up on when it comes to Janai, right? So when you watch him and he's not playing that Auburn role that he had where they kind of ran the offense through him. The short answer as to why he's not is he's not going to be doing that at the NBA. So again, the similar reason to what they're trying to do with VJ Edgecombe, where they're trying to kind of play him out of his comfort zone. I think that's the same case with Janai Broom, where they're trying to make him a little bit more of that traditional power forward, at least get accustomed to that role a little bit, because he's not going to be running the offense, through the high post, at least, for a good amount of minutes at the NBA level. So might as well focus on the things that he is more likely to actually, be trying to do. And so when you watch him as a rebounder, like the two things that stand out immediately are, well, he has a really high IQ as a rebounder, and he has absolutely no lift. Like what happened in the NBA Combine, it was not, and I'm not even making fun of him. Like it was not it wasn't mirrors. It wasn't a bad camera angle. It wasn't nothing like that. Like just for whatever reason, man, he's playing with concrete shoes. And for him to still be as good of a rebounder as he is, with that being the case, like that's honestly more credit to him talking about that skill level. He knows where to place himself on the court. He has great hands for rebounding. And one thing that I love is that he knows how to kind of tap the ball to himself, like a almost like how a volleyball player moves the ball, right? Because when you're rebounding the ball, it's not just about securing off that first bounce, right? That's great if you can do that. That's the ideal situation. There's times where that's not the case. There's times where you have to tap the ball out to a teammate. There's times where you have to tap the ball out to yourself to give yourself a competitive advantage over another player trying to rebound the ball, right? So the one thing I really want to see more from him is working on his boxing out a little bit. I think he needs to add a bit more strength as well, which is a little funny to say. But other than that, I've loved what I've seen from him from a rebounding perspective. And all in all, I've been a little bit encouraged with him as a shooter. So Janai Broom is still a guy who I want to continue watching through this summer league.
Yeah, and I want to say, Zach, to your shooter comment, I want to say a little bit more. My thought process, except for the last possession in the first game, his willingness to shoot, I guess, like he knows that that's one of the ways he's going to have to be on the court to spread the court, especially he's on the court with Joel Embiid. He has to shoot those. But a player for me, I need to see a little bit more from Justin Edwards. That's really what I'm looking for. His last game, he was much better. His last game seemed more confident. But, I just feel like Justin Edwards is not the expectation to have, be a number one scorer on the team or a top scorer, but just the ability in the summer league to show that he's a little bit head and shoulders above the other competition. And I'm not saying he need a maxi 40 ball in the second summer league, but I need to see some nice games put together with him really showing his ability to, take and make those long threes and be able to attack off the dribble once they guard those threes. So I'm looking for Justin Edwards to do some more.
Yeah, no, for sure. And before I let you guys keep on moving on, definitely wanted to shout out everybody inside the chat, dropping the comments. Definitely, Sixers and the injuries, going to what Doug just said about ownership, front office, and coaching. These will always be a constant. And, with that, these are just things that we constantly have to evolve and kind of work through. None of us here can really make no changes there, but, we have to hope that the aspiration is always going to be the same, which is to, hoist that championship and make it through. I definitely would agree with Positive Philly Productions as well, too, about the East is definitely wide open this year. This is probably as good of a year for any team in the East to make a run. Think about last year where we had the Cavaliers as the number one seed, looked like they would go straight to the finals, and they were sitting at home with the rest of us watching. So, I definitely do think that there's chance for anybody to, really move it along and go forward there. But we'll see. The two things that jumped to my mind when you guys were talking was Zach. I thought of DeJuan Blair when I thought about having no lift. He had no knees left, but still he had no lift, and he was formidable for a couple of years. We're not going to go too far there, but he made his butt going to what Justin was talking about of getting that grown man weight and really securing and putting the ball where he wanted to be. And then I think the other side of it is that, it was a miss when Batum left. And, if we could have that big who could really stretch the court and hit those threes on a consistent basis, he plays himself into some time and some role there. So I definitely think that would be a benefit. So definitely somebody I would think that we would want to watch for.
Yeah, you brought up DeJuan Blair, and that's such a great example for the reason, and it also reminds me of Chuck Hayes. The reason why it's a great example is you talk about these undersized guys, right, who had to learn how to rebound the ball from a technical standpoint. And they did so very well, and they did so competitively on the NBA level, against guys who are a lot bigger than them. Now, Janai Broom's big. He's a big guy. His problem isn't size, but almost in a similar way, his max height is shortened by that lack of lift, so it's really the other side of that same coin there. So, when you look at guys like DeJuan Blair, when you look at guys like Chuck Hayes, that's kind of the blueprint in terms of how you want this guy to be as a rebounder. And for him to kind of come out already, we're just 3 games in the summer league so far, and he's already doing these things. And I get it. He was a super senior, he spent 5 years in college. That's what a super senior is for anyone who's not familiar with that term. But still, for him to be that proficient at that skill as a rookie coming into the NBA, we talk about a guy coming in at 22. How much potential does he have? Well, his one signature skill he already has, I don't want to say mastered, but pretty damn close already. So it's like now there's that opportunity for him to focus more on, his expanding his range a little bit more. There's that opportunity to work a little bit more on those IQ matters as a defender. There's that opportunity to focus more on continuing to build strength, so that way it'll help him not only in the rebounding areas, but in his defensive capabilities as well. So, you talk about a guy who's a bit longer in the tooth as a rookie. Well, because he has the technical aspect of this skill down to this level, he gives himself a lot more potential by doing so. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, you talked about, the opportunity in the East. This is there's so much to figure out. I just want to kind of get your guys' opinion on this, because I was kind of having a battle about this on Twitter yesterday. There's this opportunity clearly in the East, right? We talk about these teams like Milwaukee going through, well, it was injury and now they've just completely waived Damian Lillard. You talk about teams like Indiana going through injury, teams like Boston going through injury, and then there's a lot of teams kind of in flux. Milwaukee's yet another one of those teams. Atlanta's added a lot of really great looking pieces, but we've yet to see how they all function together, right? So, with that said, it's kind of like the wild, wild East. And so there's that opportunity, you think, for Philadelphia, right? But so the question is, and I know we're just talking about how great Janai Brooms looked, but let's remember, again, he's a second round pick rookie this year. Power forward is still a hole for the Sixers, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of frustration from the fan base about, well, why is this not solved yet, right? Why is there no starting power forward for the Sixers? Why haven't they traded Andre Drummond and Kelly Oubre? Why is there no solution to this, right? So I'm just going to give my opinion real quick, but then I want to get your guys' opinion as well, to see kind of, where everyone's at in terms of patient levels with Daryl Morey, right? Let me be clear. Daryl Morey's leash is not unending, right? After last year, I think the front office I think the ownership group, I should say, loves him. I think that they were very unhappy with how last year went, especially with how tough everyone was talking to begin the year. So he's really got to step up this year, right? I think that's something that even he's aware of. That being said, one thing I want to make perfectly clear to everybody out there, all the people listening, everyone in the chat, there's not going to be a sexy, exciting move for the Sixers until Quentin Grimes is signed, right? Like that is literally holding up the entire offseason for the Sixers. And it's not as easy as, well, then just give him what he wants and we can move on, right? Because the problem with it is that there's salary ramifications, right? Because the more and more money you give him, the closer and closer you get. They're already going to exceed the first apron. But talking about now, you're getting into the second apron, and then that limits you even more because the CBA is so crazy. And I'll talk about that either in an article or on another podcast episode, because I don't think anyone has enough time for that right now, because that's how complicated the CBA is. You can also try and find my Twitter argument from last night if you want to read more about it. But at the end of the day, it limits you to be above these aprons, especially above that second apron. And the one thing that Philadelphia needs, especially as they get to the trade deadline, as the season progresses, because the NBA season is not one in July, right? It's not one it's one next June, right? So there's not a move you can make now that's going to win you the finals. You have to progress and see, what are your true weaknesses? What are your true strengths? What can you afford to actually give up in a situation, and how close are you to competing? So what can you afford to give up in terms of assets, right? So if you do end up signing Grimes and you find yourself in a much more like palatable area and you have room between that first and second apron, that's one thing, right? You have an opportunity to then be a little more flexible. And yeah, maybe you see a trade, that involves Kelly Oubre, Quentin Grimes, Ricky Council's another player who could potentially be on the move. Maybe then you see something like that. But until then, your options are just so limited because we don't know. Quentin Grimes could be signed basically anywhere between $15 to $25 million a year. That's a big range, and that makes a big difference with the CBA, right? So all I'm saying is, like, Sixers fans, just be patient. Like, the moves will come. I know Daryl Morey doesn't like to make moves until the middle of the year, and that's frustrating for fans, especially with a major hole like this. But this year, it's not even about him wanting to wait to make those moves. he literally has to until Quentin Grimes is signed. And so I'm not asking you to have patience for Daryl Morey's sake. You have no obligation to care about him in that regard. But just understand that, it physically literally cannot happen until Quentin Grimes is signed. Like, that is the major deal. And we have people in the chat talking about trading Andre Drummond to the Lakers for Dalton Knecht. Like, that sounds great in theory, but as much as we would love to move off of Andre Drummond's contract and bring in a young shooter like Dalton Knecht, what makes anyone think that the Lakers are going to want to move a young shooter in Dalton Knecht for a past his prime center in Andre Drummond, right? And you could say, well, you include first round picks and this and that. Lakers are trying to contend this year. Do they want a first round pick, or do they want a player who's going to help them contend? On top of that, like, you talk about a guy in Andre Drummond who had a very bad year last year. That guy's a negative value asset right now. So it's tough. And it sounds great in theory. And I've had people mention names like PJ Washington to me, Obi Toppin, and they're all great in theory. But to actually get a deal to work is so much more complicated in the NBA landscape that, it's always a matter of two sides saying yes. So just because a deal sounds great for one team doesn't necessarily mean that the other team's going to be interested. Although there's obviously young names like Dalton Knecht, who, if the Sixers have an opportunity to try and go after, of course I'm interested. But it doesn't mean the Lakers are going to be interested, and it still doesn't solve the power forward need, unfortunately. But just to kind of get your guys' perspective on the kind of stalemate the Sixers are at this season.
So yeah, first of all, they've had issues. They went into last year knowing that the power forward position was a hole. Daryl Morey said it himself. We know that. They wanted to play switchable defense and go from there. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. After that, you have to look at the fact that, like Zach said, you have to wait on Quentin Grimes. You have to wait on Quentin Grimes to, do whether he's going to sign at, Zach said 15 to 25. He could actually accept the qualifying offer, which was, I think, was it 8, 9, whatever it was, and become an unrestricted free agent next season.
Yeah, just over 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like there's so many possibilities that affect what the Sixers can do. If they wind up somehow going in the second apron by not waiting for Grimes, then if something comes along in the trade deadline, they can't aggregate salaries. Well, put players together to match other salaries for trades. So then they would have to trade players by themselves just to get under the second apron and then put players together to get somebody else. So it's so much like willing and dealing and they have to do. That's why they just got to wait it out. And at that point, you see around the league, the market is dry. People are waiting for other people to sign. Grimes is not the only one. We need to see what plays out with Kuminga. We need to see what plays out with other restricted free agents, Cam Thomas. Like, there are so many things that need to happen first before a lot of the rest of the moves can happen. And I think players who weren't signed the first 3 days or 3 days to a week know that at this point it's a waiting game. It's not like it's not roster spots available, but sometimes they have to wait until the money starts flowing again or moves start happening. So, I mean, Daryl has to do what he has to do, but I do think what Zach said is his leash is not long, specifically around the building of the team and how much how many games they lost last year without Joel, trying to prep for that. I mean, who can talk about the injuries? But I think one thing I'll talk about real quick is for Daryl, his decision saying that he's going to focus on getting younger and the optics of re-signing Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry. I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong thing to do. I'm not saying you shouldn't have mentors on the team, but it's the optics. So when you have Kyle Lowry, who's didn't even play a lot of games last year, and neither did Gordon, at the end of the day, it's the optics. And as far as Drummond, I'm going to say this. He needs, before anybody can put him in any trade machine, and trust me, I have as well, he needs to rebuild value. He needs to rebuild value. And that's where we're at right now. You got to just wait until things kind of, focus out. And then from there, you might see some moves made.
Yeah, I do just want to bring up I want to hear from Jordan, but I want to bring up 3 quick things just off of what Justin said real fast. The first thing is, I know you said you're not going to say it. I'll absolutely say it. Bringing back Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry was absolutely a mistake. That was the wrong thing to do for Daryl Morey. And the thing is, you can talk about bringing back one of them, and I think in this case, bringing back Eric Gordon would have been the right case. But to bring back two of them when you're talking about getting younger, getting more athletic, and you have such a need at like the power forward spot, for instance, and I even think the center spot, because again, there's not a lot of believers in Andre Drummond right now, at least outside like 4022 Philly Sports. He's a big believer in Andre Drummond. We know that he's talking about it in the chat right now. But when you talk about like people on the Sixers, when you talk about people in the league, there's not a lot of faith in Andre Drummond. So I think the Sixers have a little bit of a need at center as well, in addition to power forward. So you bring back two punitive, really, really, really veteran guys, and that's an issue. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but I can definitely say that I would not have made that decision. I think that is the wrong decision. But just a couple other quick notes. You talked about Quentin Grimes as a quality, accepting his qualifying offer. If he does so, something a lot of people don't know, he actually would get a no trade clause along with that, which would make then including him in a trade during the season a lot more difficult as well. So that's just, one other thing to consider there. But Jordan, wanted to get your perspective also.
What else could I say after that? I mean, listen, guys, I jokingly tell you guys, I'm just happy being Ernie Johnson here. Man, some of the things, like, who would have known? I honestly had no clue about the no trade. I just learned something just now. So when I go to the barber shop later on, I'll be, pipe down. What you don't know is, and Justin, thank you as well. Like you said, I definitely agree with a lot of the points that you guys are making. I think the biggest thing as a Sixers fan and just as a human living in Philadelphia is we have to practice patience. So I really feel,
and that's like the hardest thing. Like as
yeah.
a guy, like, like from the area, like everyone I know, it's the same case. Like that's hard. Like don't think it's just because we're saying it. Don't think it's easy for us. Like it's hard for all of us. Like, we're all from the Philly area. We all grew up Sixers fans. So like, just because now, we're covering the team and, like that, and we're telling you guys to be patient, that doesn't mean we think it's easy, right? That doesn't mean that you should not feel your feelings. You shouldn't feel some type of way about what Daryl Morey's done or not done. Like things like the Joel Embiid extension, still completely legitimate criticism. I have my opinions on it. I've spoken enough about it. I don't need to relitigate all that, but just to say, like, man, patience is hard. Like, 4020 Philly Sports, he just said it. Patience is hard, guys. Like that's straight up it. Like that is, period, stop right there. That's literally it. It's hard. So, it's not going to be easy now between, now and the deadline, but man, like I know you're going to hate it when I say this, but trust the process. Like we're still in that mode full on.
Right. And Jordan, go ahead. Cause
go ahead, Justin.
Like, and I see a comment about starting Bona at the 4. He's not, he doesn't have enough spacing quality right now. I will say this.
He looks great in an empty gym, but that's a whole different environment.
I just want fans to really understand that in the Embiid era, outside of, and I'm going to say it, when Ben Simmons is on this team, in the Embiid era, this team has been terrible at rebounding. They've always haven't been, when Ben has not been on the court or not been a Sixer, they have trouble, getting defensive rebounds. They give up a lot of offensive rebounds. It's a clear need, and it's been in league for years. They just haven't found the right player to do it. And they've always shopped in a bargain bin for centers and backups because they feel like Embiid was going to play 38 minutes in the playoffs and he winds up being injured. So in that case, the thinking does have to change. And we just have to, like Zach said, although it's hard, we have to be patient. There might be a situation where they do get a Trey Lyles or Ben Simmons might come home. I'm joking. But at the end of the day, like, we just have to be patient, wait for the Grimes signing, wait to see what other moves they can make and go from there. But the one thing they're not going to do is they're not going to trade assets when they don't know exactly what's going to happen with this team. So it might start, they might get a Trey Lyles or they might have Watford start at the 4. You just never know. But they're going to see how it plays out first before they start spending assets. And I do think they will, because they do know that Nurse and Morey their seat is very warm going into the season. So we just have to see how it plays out.
No, I think that was perfect. And I actually think since I was going to, what I was going to tell you guys was I had nothing else to say because I was going to let this end with Zach telling all of us, just be patient. Because I believe at the end of the day, to everyone in the comments, to Old Dirty Yams, to 40 and 22, to everyone, to Duck, everyone who's talking about it, I think the passion is there. We all want the same thing. We all will sit here and will nitpick at the small decisions that's being made now because they're not big enough, they're not small enough, they're not at the right position, they're not the right draft pick. We could do that all day long. But I think what we're all looking for is a cohesive unit that's on the floor, healthy, and competing. And I think that's what we're all waiting for. And hopefully, I know this was the teaser that I gave last week to make sure you guys came back on here, but hopefully next week, a lot more of these dominoes will start to fall and we can start to see the building of that process. I won't say the other trust part because I know people will go crazy, but we will start to see those building blocks added to the process of us moving forward. So, before I let you guys get out of here, of course, Zach and Justin, I'm going to kick to you for last words, but I think that's the most important thing that we just need to keep in mind is that this is going to be something that's ongoing. And most importantly, I think Justin touched on it. It may not happen next week. It may not happen next week. It may not happen the week after that, but we will hold tight and knowing that hopefully our leadership is making the right move. Zach, Justin, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I guess just the last thing is I know it's a late night tonight to watch the Sixers without VJ Edgecombe playing, but I mean, even still, there's a lot of interesting pieces on this team. We should hopefully get a Dembona back, who I am not undervaluing Old Dirty Yams. I was the beat reporter telling all the other beat reporters on draft day that this guy was going to be playing minutes by the end of the season. So, don't come at me with that because I'm definitely not the guy undervaluing Bona. I just don't think he can play the four. But you're going to be there watching a Dembona. You're going to be there watching Justin Edwards, just like Justin said. Definitely some more to see out of him. Janai Broom, we already talked about him. Judah Mintz, I mean, like back-to-back 20-point performances, like crazy stuff. Hood Shafino has been getting, he's better and better. I like watching him play. I'm not going to lie. Like I enjoy, maybe it's just the point guard with size that I enjoy, but I'm having a good time watching him. So, even though it's a late night, 10 o'clock Eastern time, stick around, watch the game, watch some of the guys who don't usually get that chance to shine and see what's up and just watch some good basketball. So, I'll be watching the game. Hopefully you guys will be too.
It's fair. Justin?
Yep. And I just want to say, everybody's talking about, Jordan, you said seeing the team healthy or the wide open East. You know what's wide open this year? The NBA Cup. So I hope that they at least try to win this year.
That's
so
true. We didn't even mention that. I mean, so that's coming, just super brief on that, coming earlier than ever. And who's in the group again? It's the Nets, the Celtics, the Magic,
and
the Pistons. Yeah, so
winnable group, man.
That's a good group. Yeah, I mean, there's some opportunity. I don't think the Celtics or the Nets are going to be the most competitive teams out of that group, but you're talking about the Orlando Magic with the addition of Desmond Bane. You got Paolo coming off that big fat deal he just signed. Detroit, whatever they're doing, probably not the team to bet on in that case, but there's some interesting stuff in the Group B. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
And the ridiculous courts. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Always true. But listen, they've done red, they've done blue. What do they do now? That's the big question. Like, are we getting a black court with the Iverson jerseys and we just can't see anything at all? Like,
that's what I think is coming.
Oh, okay. I'm going to shut you guys down because if y'all are bringing up the throwback jersey conversation, I know the chat's about to go crazy. Save it. I'm hitting one of these. I know where this is about to go. No, that was a good teaser. In fact, Zach,
We'll save it for another time.
That was a good way to keep the audience intrigued there because you almost got me too. But that's why we have these every week so that we can come back and talk about some more Sixers related stuff. So before we get out of here, of course, Thank you to everybody inside the comments for tuning in. Those who are watching now, those who will catch it on the back end. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow, tell a friend to tell a friend. Get ready, because we will be here each week, and we appreciate you guys stopping by. Justin, Zach.
Peace.
Peace.